Imagine you're an archaeologist. It's a Tuesday morning in southeastern Turkey. The year is 1994. The sun hasn't fully risen yet. You're standing on an ordinary limestone hill. Nothing special, they said. A farmer told you he kept tripping over carved stones when he plowed his field. You dig. 3 feet, 6 feet. Then your brush touches something that makes your hand freeze. It's a pillar, 18 feet tall, 16 tons, and it is decorated with animals, symbols, geometry in such precise, deliberate artistry that your brain refuses to process what your eyes are seeing. Because here is the problem. This thing is 12,000 years old. That is 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids, 6,000 years before Stonehenge. It predates the wheel, writing, agriculture, everything we were taught came first, and there are hundreds more buried beneath your feet, waiting. We have been taught a very clean, very comfortable story about human history. A story that goes, we evolved, we wandered, we farmed, we built cities, we invented writing. And then civilization began, roughly 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. What if, long before the Sumerians pressed cuneiform into clay, long before pharaohs carved their names into mountain faces, something else was here? Not aliens, not myth, but a civilization, a real, breathing, building, thinking civilization that rose and fell so completely that we nearly forgot it ever existed. The clues are everywhere, hidden in plain sight, buried under jungle, submerged beneath ocean, encoded in stone. And right now, in 2024 and 2025, archaeologists, geologists, and astrophysicists are piecing together a picture that is overturning everything we thought we knew. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is science at its most thrilling edge. Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover will change the way you see the world you're standing on.
Let's start with what we're officially taught. According to the mainstream historical record, anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, have existed for roughly 300,000 years. For most of that time, we supposedly did very little. We hunted, we gathered, we painted cave walls, we moved with the seasons. Then, around 10,000 BCE, about 12,000 years ago, something clicked. We started farming, communities formed, trade began, and around 3,500 BCE, the first true civilizations emerged. Sumer in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, ancient Egypt. That, we are told, is where our story begins. But here's the first crack in that timeline. In 2024, scientists announced that cave art, discovered in Sulawesi, Indonesia, a painted hunting scene of pig-like animals, was dated to at least 51,200 years old. 51,000 years. That's not primitive scratching. That is compositional narrative art. That is storytelling. That is symbolic thought. And that same year, ground-penetrating LiDAR technology, the same kind used by NASA, was used to scan the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador and revealed over 6,000 interconnected earthen platforms, forming ancient urban settlements dating back 2,000 years. Cities, hidden under a canopy so thick that no one had looked for them before. And then there are the anomalies that go much, much deeper. In 2024, researchers from Johns Hopkins University uncovered four 400-year-old clay cylinders in a Syrian tomb at el Mara, bearing what they believe is the oldest known alphabetic writing, predating previously known scripts by 500 years. Every year, the line we draw at the beginning of civilization gets pushed back, further and further and further still. So the question becomes, where does it stop? Let's go back to that hill in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe. The German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began serious excavations there in 1995. What he found was nothing short of a paradigm shatterer. T-shaped limestone pillars, some of them 18 feet tall, weighing 16 tons each, arranged in precise circular enclosures. Carved into them, foxes, vultures, scorpions, lions, ibises, and humanoid forms. Outstretched arms, belts, abstract symbols no one has fully decoded. The radiocarbon dating placed its construction at approximately 9,600 BCE. That is 11,600 years ago. The site was deliberately buried around 8,000 BCE, entombed by whoever built it, as if they wanted to protect it or hide it for someone who would come later. Here is what makes archaeologists pause. Here is what keeps them up at night. At 9,600 BCE, according to everything we believed, the builders of Göbekli Tepe should have been nomadic hunter-gatherers. They weren't supposed to have the social coordination, the architectural knowledge, the labor organization, or the engineering skill to quarry 16-ton stones, transport them across a hill, raise them vertically, and carve them with breathtaking precision. That level of construction requires hierarchy. It requires a workforce that is fed, organized, managed. It requires someone in charge. And it requires knowledge. Hard-won, practiced, passed-down knowledge of geometry, of astronomy, of art. And there is this. Some of the pillars appear to align with constellations, specifically the star cluster Taurus, and the position of the stars as they would have appeared at the end of the last ice age. Researcher Martin Sweatman of the University of Edinburgh published a study suggesting that certain animal carvings on Pillar 43, sometimes called the vulture. To answer that, we need to go underwater. 12,000 years ago, the world looked radically different. We were at the tail end of the last ice age, the Pleistocene. Sea levels were, on average, 300 to 400 feet lower than they are today. That means enormous stretches of land that are now submerged were then dry, fertile, habitable coast. The Sunda Shelf, connecting Southeast Asia. The Persian Gulf, dry land. The continental shelves of Europe, India, the Americas. Millions of square kilometers of coastline, gone now, underwater. And coastlines, as any geographer will tell you, are where civilizations tend to build. They are where you fish, where you trade, where you settle. Now consider this. In 2001, off the coast of Gujarat in western India, in the Gulf of Kambat, marine archaeologists using sonar discovered something extraordinary. Beneath 120 feet of water, the remains of a structured settlement. Stone walls, pillars, what appears to be a grid-patterned city. Carbon dating of wooden artifacts recovered from the site suggested ages of up to 9,500 years, which would make it contemporaneous with Göbekli Tepe, and thousands of years older than anything we attribute to the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Legends in the ancient Hindu epic, the Mahabharata, describe a magnificent golden city called Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna, lost to the sea. For millennia, scholars filed it under myth. Now, there may be ruins sitting on the ocean floor that match those descriptions. In 2025, researchers using cutting-edge underwater mapping technology uncovered a submerged port off the coast of Egypt that may provide clues to finding Cleopatra's tomb, and in doing so, revealed that what we think of as ancient Egypt's coastline was once dramatically different. The implication, the answer, may have come from above. In June of 2024, a peer-reviewed paper was published in the journal Airbursts and Cratering Impacts by UC Santa Barbara Emeritus Professor James Kennett and colleagues from the University of South Carolina. Their conclusion was extraordinary. They found, at 3 separate sites along the eastern coast of the United States, in South Carolina, Maryland, and New Jersey, an unusual layer of material embedded in the geological record at exactly one specific depth, the depth corresponding to 12,800 years ago. What did they find? Platinum, a metal rare on Earth, but abundant in comets. Magnetic microspherules, tiny balls of molten iron cooled mid-air, raining down from a massive high-temperature event. Melt glass, silica fused by temperatures that have no geological explanation. And most dramatically, shock-fractured quartz, bearing microscopic cracks created only under pressures so extreme that they deform the crystal structure of one of the hardest minerals on Earth. This was the first time shock-fractured quartz had been found at multiple sites simultaneously, at the same geological depth. 600 miles separated the survey sites. The evidence was not local. It was hemispheric. This layer, called the Younger Dryas boundary, has now been identified at over 50 sites around the world, on multiple continents, including in South America, South Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. The same markers, the same depth, the same moment in time. The hypothesis that this evidence supports is called the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. It proposes that approximately 12,800 years ago, a fragmented comet, estimated to have been 62 miles wide, larger than the object that killed the dinosaurs, exploded in Earth's atmosphere in a series of airbursts. Not a single impact, but a cosmic shotgun blast raining fire across the northern hemisphere. The result was catastrophic on a planetary scale. Average temperatures in central Greenland dropped by 9 to 14 degrees Celsius within a single year. Global wildfires swept across continents. Sea levels rose as ice sheets collapsed, and a cooling period called the Younger Dryas set in for over 1,200 years, a second ice age that nobody saw coming. Human populations collapsed. Studies show a dramatic global population bottleneck at precisely this moment. The woolly mammoth, the giant ground sloth, the American horse. 35 genera of large mammals went extinct, almost simultaneously, right at this boundary. And here is what stops your heart. The Clovis culture, the first confirmed civilization of the Americas, sophisticated, continent-spanning, skilled, disappears from the archaeological record completely. At exactly 12,800 years ago, this is not a local story, this is a global extinction event, and it happened in living memory of the people who built Göbekli Tepe. Now imagine you survived it. Imagine your world, your ports, your cities, your coastlines, your accumulated knowledge was burned, submerged, and frozen. What would you do? You would go to higher ground. You would teach what you remembered to whoever was left. Which brings us to one of the strangest, most persistent patterns in all of human culture. Every major civilization on Earth carries a flood myth. Not some, every one. The Sumerians had Utnapishtim, who survived a great flood by building a vessel and preserving the seeds of life. The Hebrews had Noah. The Greeks had Deucalion. The Hindus had Manu. The Aztecs had Coxcox. The Mayans recorded it in the Popol Vuh. Aboriginal Australians tell of the great flood that swallowed the land of their ancestors. The Ojibwe people of North America, the people of Polynesia, the tribes of sub-Saharan Africa. There is no corner of the inhabited world that does not carry this memory. For centuries, scholars treated these stories as metaphor, religious narrative, psychological archetype. But what if they are something else entirely? What if they are memory? What if the great flood of world mythology is a fragmented cultural memory of the actual, real, catastrophic rise of sea levels that occurred between 14,000 and 8,000 years ago, when the Ice Age ended, when ice sheets the size of continents melted, when sea levels rose by over 300 feet, the Amazon discovery of 2024, over 6,000 earthen platforms revealed by LiDAR, dating to 2,000 years ago, showing an urban civilization with roads, canals, and interconnected communities, demonstrates just how easy it is for an entire civilization to vanish under vegetation. If that much could be hidden in 2,000 years, what could 12,000 years of jungle, ocean, and geological shift conceal? And across these flood myths, a specific figure keeps appearing. A sage, a teacher, a wise one who arrived after the catastrophe and taught the survivors to farm, to build, to record the stars. The Sumerians called these figures the Apkallu, the seven sages. The Egyptians had Thoth. The Mesoamericans had Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who came from the east and brought civilization. Are these gods, or are these memories of real people, survivors of a lost world, carrying their knowledge to the scattered survivors of a catastrophe? We cannot yet prove it, but we can no longer comfortably disprove it. Here is what is happening right now, in 2024 and 2025, as this video exists in your hands. Artificial intelligence has changed the game. In 2024, an AI-assisted study identified 303 previously unknown geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert of Peru, enormous figures drawn into the earth, visible only from the sky. We thought we had catalogued Nazca. We had barely begun. In Egypt, a team using remote sensing technology detected a long-lost branch of the Nile, now mostly dried up, which was used thousands of years ago to transport the massive stones used to build the pyramids at Giza. We have been staring at those pyramids for centuries. We did not know about this river until 2024. In Indonesia, the megalithic site of Gunung Padang, a terraced stone structure on a volcanic mountain in West Java, has been subject to enormous controversy. A 2023 geological study claimed that parts of the structure could be up to 27,000 years old, which would make it the oldest known man-made structure in human history. While that paper was subsequently retracted amid intense scientific debate, core drilling at the site has confirmed the presence of buried structures at depths that clearly predate the surface layers. The debate continues, and it matters enormously. In South America, the Upano Valley sites in Ecuador, announced as the oldest known complex Amazonian society in 2024, showed that highly organized urban living in the Amazon began over 2,000 years ago, far earlier than thought, and in a region we dismissed as too hostile for civilization. In 2005, DNA sequencing reconstructed the ancestry of an Egyptian who lived at the dawn of the pyramids, providing new insight into who exactly the pyramid builders were and where they came from. Their ancestry points to migrations that trace back thousands of years further than the dynasties we know. And perhaps most hauntingly, in 2025, researchers in Peru may have finally solved the mystery of the 5,000 Band of Hole. Pits carved into a remote mountainside called Monte Sirpe, or Serpent Mountain. Using drone mapping and plant residue analysis, they concluded the pits may have been a massive marketplace and accounting system, a kind of ancient spreadsheet, possibly connected to a counting method encoded in knotted strings called quipus, a society so organized it needed to track transactions. On a mountainside, in the middle of the Andes, thousands of years ago, the scale of what we are discovering is breathtaking, and we are only scratching the surface. Now, here is where intellectual honesty matters, and it matters deeply. Not everything presented under the banner of lost civilization is credible. The Netflix documentary series Ancient Apocalypse, hosted by journalist Graham Hancock and released in November 2022, brought these ideas to hundreds of millions of viewers. The second season followed in October 2024, featuring actor Keanu Reeves. It was compelling television. But the Society for American Archaeology, in an open letter to Netflix, called Hancock's theories pseudoscientific. Archaeologist Flint Dibble of Cardiff University said the show is lacking in evidence to support its central theory, while there is a plethora of evidence contradicting the specific dates Hancock gives. Multiple archaeologists featured in the show stated their interviews were taken out of context. This matters because the story of a possible lost civilization does not need to be sold with distortion. The actual science is extraordinary enough. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is a genuine, actively researched, peer-reviewed scientific debate. Göbekli Tepe is a real, documented site that genuinely challenges our timeline. Submerged sites are real. LiDAR discoveries are real. The flood myths are real. The difference between good science and pseudoscience is not the question asked. It is the honesty with which you pursue the answer, and the willingness to say, "We don't know yet. We don't know yet, but we are closer than ever before." Here is what I want to leave you with. Civilization is not a destination. It is not something humanity arrived at. finally 5,000 years ago, and has been improving steadily ever since. The evidence accumulating around us suggests it may be something older, something cyclical, something that can be built and lost and rebuilt again, like a fire that can be smothered, but whose embers survive. The people who built Göbekli Tepe had no name we know, no empire, no writing system we've decoded. They left no king's lists, no tax records, no victory monuments. They left pillars, they left symbols. They left a monument carefully buried, as if they knew what was coming and wanted something to survive it. And 12,000 years later, on a Tuesday morning in 1994, a German archaeologist's brush touched that pillar, and the past reached across the full length of human memory to tap us on the shoulder. We are not the first complex beings to walk this earth. We may not be the most advanced civilization this planet has ever produced. And the next time a meteor streaks across the sky, the next time a volcano reshapes a coast, or a river changes course and swallows a city, something of what we built may vanish just as completely. History is not a line. It is layers. And we are only now, with radar and sonar and artificial intelligence and the relentless curiosity of human beings who refuse to stop asking, beginning to read what is written in the layers below us. The oldest story in the world has not yet been told, but we are finally learning to listen for it.